we've had some trade requests in recent days. Micah Parsons, obviously, it's a little old news by now that he requested the trade. Had that, anytime you got the Notes app coming up on Twitter, it's serious. You had 2 pages of Notes app too. It wasn't just one, it was 2 pages requesting the trade. Do we think, one, JP, that he does get traded? And 2, where would you like to see him go if he does?
I really don't think he's going to be traded. This would be the most insane trade to happen in the NFL in a long time, considering he is one of the best defenders at his position in the NFL. And he's also 26 years old. But if he were to get traded, I would love to see the Patriots make a run for him. I think that for every star player that requests a trade, I'm going to go, Patriots, let's do it. Because they have the cap space, they have the picks necessary, they have the roster, and I think they have the coaching to kind of insulate bringing in a star player on either side of the ball that can really help make an impact for them. But Parsons, imagining Micah Parsons with Keon White, Christian Barmore, and all those just havoc raisers they have on defense would be super fun in the AFC East, and it would kind of jumpstart their, retooling, rebuilding. So I would love to see him on the Patriots, but this feels like a situation where this is just like standard Cowboys behavior, where everything is always for the content. I think they are the best content creators in the NFL world. So this is probably going to end up with Parsons getting the biggest deal in NFL history.
JP, I got to say, I love the New England thought because it would bring some extremely big-time star power to a team that right now kind of lacks the notoriety on the defensive side of the ball. You named a lot of guys who get the job done well for them on the front end. They've got good players on the back end. To bring a real star, ties it all together. I love the New England thought, but Dallas they got to get it done.
You brought up an interesting point, JP, that I actually hadn't thought of, and I think could be like a little conspiracy theory. We have all talked about in recent years, why the heck are they going to the deadline with Dak? Why are they going to the deadline with CD? Why are they playing around with Micah? Is it just so that First Take talks about him for like a month straight by the time, is it just for that? There could be a world where Jerry's just like, hey, we're going to let these deals go all the way out as far as possible, because then it's going to lead for, we're talking about it right now. We're going to talk about it next spring if they don't get a deal done. Like, there's an interesting experience. I don't think it's true. I think that would be a batshit crazy way to run an NFL franchise, but Jerry Jones. I completely agree, though. I was on HQ last week. As soon as the trade happened, I said New England Patriots. It makes the most sense. Massive need there. Massive hole. They've been spending all this cash. And anyone that trades for him, I think the big thing, if you're offering, because it's going to take 2 firsts plus, going back to the Khalil Mack deal, it's 2 firsts, a second. It's going to take like that. But it can't be someone like the Tennessee Titans giving up 2 firsts, right? The Tennessee Titans giving up 2 firsts, could be the number 1 overall pick, right? It can't be someone who has a lot of cap space and stinks. It's got to be someone with a lot of cap space who thinks they're going to be good. So I think them. The other dark horse who I think could make a play is the Los Angeles Rams. One, because this is their standard operating process, right? Is give up first for good players. That's what they do. They've done it. They only just stopped doing it after they won the Super Bowl. So standing operating procedure for them. But if you just go look at their cap hits or the cap, what they have in the future, 26, 27, they have about as much space as anyone else in the NFL. They don't have a lot of big deals there on the books. They could easily get Micah Parsons in there. Now, it's maybe not a need. You got Byron Young there. But if you had Jared versus Micah Parsons, you go from like a fun team in the NFC to a team that could easily win it all.
That's how you make the most of it, JP, right? He said Khalil Mack, and it made me think about Khalil Mack joining the room with Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman, with the linebackers that Chicago had at the time. That's how you maximize a superstar. The Rams, I'm interested to hear what JP says about this, because they've got those 4 horsemen again. It's what they've done for all of eternity for the Rams. They've always had great guys up front. Add Micah. Like, who are you going to block? Who do you slide to?
That's exactly kind of the way that I think the Rams are thinking about their defense, which is, if you can win with 4, we'll figure out everything else on the back end. If you can win with those guys up front and you can easily get to 3rd and long, you're gonna win most situations. If you add Micah Parsons to that group, now, like you said, you don't know which way to slide. All the stunts and games that you want to run become so much more effective, but you also just don't have to do that anymore. I think it goes back to, there's this like coaching clinic that Kirby Smart been uploaded to YouTube, where it's like, if you can win up front, with as minimal numbers as possible, everything else on the back end becomes so much easier. You can devote much more numbers to the pass when you know that they can't block your 4 up front. So I think for the Rams, they're just maximizing that. They're going all in on the pass rush, and adding Micah Parsons would make too much sense.
Yeah, I think that's the one team where it's like they have the desperation to do it. They have just like the tools to do it. So I will tie bow it by saying this. I did the Bleacher Report draft show with Micah Parsons the last 2 years. He was very knowledgeable about the cap. He knows how much he's worth. He is going to ask for top of the market. He deserves top of the market. But he's also a prideful human being that, when people play with him, when people, mess around, like he is not a guy who is going to just easily forgive. And so for a lot of people, like the Myles Garrett trade request, the Terry McLaurin request, they're going to get to, a lot of times in research, it's kind of a bargaining chip to request that trade and get your name out there in the public. I think Micah could be a little different. And I think this Jerry situation could just be a little different. So as much as we all say, it's just whatever, I think this one has more legs than any of the ones we saw this offseason in terms of actually resulting in a trade. So we shall see. Terry McLaurin, though, he also requested a trade. This one, I think, felt more like, hey, just like, I just really want the contract. Just pay it. Why would you want to leave a team that was on the precipice of the Super Bowl last year, only getting better? One of the most exciting young teams in the NFL. But from the Commanders' perspective, he turns 30 in September. And I tweeted this out for context. The recent high-end wide receivers that have kind of gone bust, retired in the NFL, or like on the downside, their last 1,000-yard seasons. Nuke Hopkins came at 31. Julio Jones came at 30. Antonio Brown came at 30. AJ Green came at 29. Amari Cooper was 29. Keenan Allen, 31. Cooper Kupp was 28. Really the only guys who, if you extended at 30 for like a 3-year extension, and they kind of played through that and were going to justify it, Devonta Adams, Mike Evans. There's just, the game has changed. It is a speed-based game on the outside. I think that's the biggest thing with Terry McLaurin here is the Commanders are finally starting to make good decisions. And a lot of teams, a lot of well-run teams in this situation, when wide receivers start to hit 30, they are not willing to pony up those big numbers knowing the history of the position.
Yeah, and I think from the Commanders' perspective, if I'm going to tie in a little wrestling, it feels like they kind of worked themselves into a shoot here with Terry McLaurin, because you are correct with all the receiver contracts, especially going over 30. The play takes a massive jump downhill. But Terry McLaurin is really important to the ecosystem of the Commanders' offense, including being that guy on the outside who can win, because the Commanders don't really have that. They need somebody for Jaden Daniels to get all those fade routes to. In terms of running those go routes, they were one of the most dynamic duos in the NFL last year. And for a team that is ready to make that jump, you want to keep everything as you want to keep all the continuity as possible. So it feels like they kind of work themselves into a corner here where, like, yeah, he's 30. Yeah, you kind of, that age is really coming into play here, but he is also very important to an offense that you don't really have that outside threat if Terry McLaurin's gone.
Yeah, it's so vitally important to have a guy that a quarterback trusts no matter what. Okay, like when I got to the league, Jay Cutler explained what having Ryan Clady protecting your blind side was like. You didn't even have to think about it. You didn't have any anxiety. Who's a mute button. Well, he's the opposite of a mute button for Jaden Daniels. He's a guy that he can access all the time. And to your point, JP, they just don't have that kind of dynamic playmaker opposite Terry McLaurin. And regardless of his age, you have to weigh in the importance of the opportunity to win a Super Bowl as a franchise versus whatever dollar amount you're going to miss out on because Terry McLaurin's not going to be in his prime. Is it worth it? Find out what that number is and go with it, or don't. But I would argue that it's worth it. You got it right now. You got something special. Maybe McLaurin goes 31 and has a 1,000-yard season. You never know until you try.
Yeah, your go ball point, JP, I think was so apt. Just reading off the names of the wide receivers: Noah Brown, Deebo Samuel, Luke McCaffrey, Michael Gallup. At one point, Michael Gallup could. Michael Gallup at this point cannot. When he go, like, there's no other guy in there where it's like 9-route outside, one-on-one coverage, automatic. Terry's that guy, and that guy helps. Having that guy when you have Jaden who throws it as beautifully as anyone else in the NFL, that helps a lot in terms of the coverages that you're going to face. So yeah, I agree that they almost have to get a deal done, but it's going to be difficult for them to say, for sure, 3-year extension, let's do it, $25 million a year. I just don't see that being the case for the Commanders at this point.